everybody. Again, my name is John. I am a customer success engineer here at ShareFile. And today I'm joined here also with Laura, and she's on our product marketing team. And today her and I should say, are going to go through some things about getting ready for the busy season. Now, if you're a tax company and a accounting company, obviously your busy season is coming. But also other, of course, industries and verticals, they tend to get busy, obviously, at the beginning of the year. So we wanted to go through some practices that will help you just stay secure with collaborating with your clients and with your employees. And be sure we hit on some tips and tricks throughout your busy season to be sure that everything goes as planned. So just again, to introduce myself, again, my name is John. I've been with ShareFile for about 7 years, been on support side, the pre-sale side, now on the customer success side, and love what I do. And I do things like this with webinars and help with adoption efforts and make sure you're getting the best out of ShareFile. I'll let Laura go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Nice to have you here today. My name is Laura Kaminsky. I am the Principal Product Marketing Manager at ShareFile. I've been here, I just hit my 5-year anniversary at ShareFile, and my role here is really to represent the voice of the customers in the product development lifecycle. So we love definitely showing you all the tips and tricks, but also hearing back your feedback and all the comments. We do take that to heart and take that back into the production and development of the product. So take it away, John.
Awesome. Awesome. Great intro. All right. So let's kick it off first, and always with a thank you. And again, thank you everyone for joining us today and continuing your support with ShareFile. So let's go through the agenda real quick. Today, we're going to go through some basics of securing your link creation to collaborate with your users, your employees, and go through just a couple tips and tricks around that. And then we're going to go through some examples, some use cases that we feel in different verticals that, of course, it is helpful in terms of what you do in ShareFile. And then we're going to hit some of our applications, great applications if you don't know them. Easy ways to integrate it with the ways you work day to day instead of just going through, say, a browser to access ShareFile. We do have those integrations that you could work off of. And then we'll touch a little bit more on the security part, your device security, how to secure devices accessing ShareFile. And then we're going to get a little bit into threat alerts and things about how to keep ShareFile rock solid when, again, you're collaborating with all these users. How do you protect yourself, how to protect that data? We're going to go through some of those changes that we've done recently. And then we're going to get a little bit into reporting. Reporting is huge, right? We want to be sure we are, say, auditing when we need to, if there's something that occurs within ShareFile, how to track that down. And then finally, we'll hit on a couple things around just how to get help, a couple things around our blogs, and we're going to actually talk briefly here about Share Next. And actually, let's jump right into that, and I'll share a little bit more once we get towards the end. But Share Next is a super awesome webinar that we're actually coming up here within January. It's going to have a lot of our leaders coming in to talk about just where we're going with ShareFile. There's going to be a lot of new things that we talk about, the envision of ShareFile going into 2024. Again, this is one of our first big all-time webinars that we're actually having. It's all customer focused. And again, I'll show you the registration at the end, but everyone's free to attend. So definitely looking forward to that. Kind of start out with some of the basics. Now, again, you might be familiar with the web interface altogether with ShareFile. You know how to share, maybe request files, but let's kind of talk about the flow of when we are collaborating with a client. Again, how to kind of secure those shares. Again, we're going that busy season. There's collaboration happening all over. How do we protect that data when it's most important to you? So let's talk about just creating shares and the nuances around that. Now, first off, as you saw on the shortcut on my desktop, or I'm sorry, my dashboard, I should say, we do have a share files option here. And from here, I can start off with either dragging and dropping a file from my desktop, which is great because that's seamless integration. You don't necessarily need those files or those folders on or in ShareFile already. But if I did already have them, I could simply come in to my shared folders here or my personal folders, wherever your data is. And I'm going to come in and start a simple share. Could be a couple documents that I want to share. It could be a one-off. That's totally fine. But let's take, for instance, I'm going to add these 2 items that I need to share out to a client. I can always add more if I forgot. And then from here, it's going to ask you a couple different ways of sharing this actual, or these files, I should say, is either first through email or through a link. Get a link is great because it can generate that URL for you. You could take that, paste that onto, say, if you're chatting with somebody, say on Slack or Teams, you can immediately send that share off to them and they should be able to access it. But let's talk a little bit more about going through email, because we do like to have a trail, right? And emails are a good paper trail, if you will, in terms of seeing, of course, somebody interacting with that share, and I'm sending it to somebody directly via email. It's really the way to go. And let's first talk about a couple things about security. First off, we do have a method to help encrypt your email. We're going to actually talk a little bit about that when we get to our Outlook plugin. But you can encrypt this email, and all this actually is doing is encrypting the body of the message. All your data within ShareFile is already encrypted, so that's the great thing. This is just acting or adding on an extra layer of security in terms of encrypting the body of the message itself. So if I do send this to somebody, only that person would be able to open that up and be able to access that share. I'm just going to turn this off for purposes of a couple things that I wanted to showcase. But the first thing, when we get into the edit options for the share, we are telling this into what we want this to do, right? We want this person either to just view those documents, maybe want to give them the ability to download them so they can edit those outside of ShareFile, or maybe it's something they need to print, whatever have you, you can give them access to download. And then finally, you do have the ability to edit these live. We do have Office Online integration, so you can actually take those Word or Excel files and be able to edit live with somebody else. We call that co-editing. So as you can see, we first want to choose what we actually want to do with that. But say, for instance, I just want them to be able to download, and then I'm going to expire this link after so long. So this doesn't expire the data that I'm sending. This is expiring just the link that I'm creating to actually share. So the good thing here is, hey, this might be super sensitive. I don't want this link to remain out there in the open for more than 1 day. So I can always choose that 1 day. And then that will give that person just that 1 day to be able to download or view that document. Another thing is to require recipients to sign in. This is important because if you want that added security, instead of it being an anonymous link, we can actually have it so that that person I'm sending it to has to require to log in first. Now, I did want to touch a little bit on this as well once I do send this off, because it's an important fact that, say, for instance, the client isn't already a part of your ShareFile instance. They've never collaborated with you. So how do they log in? Well, I'll show you kind of how that looks when you get that email. And then you'll see a couple of different options down here that we won't get too far into. But the one big thing that I always like to notify myself is, or notify me when that person is actually accessing the link itself. So when I have this toggled, I'll get an email back to say, hey, John Doe actually accessed this link. They're able to download. And then I can be rest assured that he got that document and is on his way to working with that document with me. So I'm just going to save this. And I'm just going to put in a person that I know I have in the system. Now, again, if I didn't already have this person within ShareFile as a client, I can just type their email address in. And when I do send this off, I will show you an example that I already actually sent out to somebody. Is that, say, for instance, this is your client and they're getting that email for the first time. And they're saying, hey, listen, I got, of course, an email from you. It's, of course, say a new hire form I need to download or review. When they actually click that, they will go through the process of setting up their client user account. Okay, that's super important because, again, if you're worrying about having to set up users, don't worry about that. We automate that for you in terms of the client walking through creating their client. And once they're actually done with that, they should be able to access that file. And just like we had before, I told it that we can actually allow them to download. So once they open that up, they create their account, they can then download from there. A couple other caveats just to kind of mention here is when I am sharing something, and say, for instance, I'm sharing from a folder now, this was already existing. When I share, A couple things just to kind of mention here that didn't appear on the other side that I wanted to say is that when we're creating, say, a link for sharing, you also have who can access this link. This is a little different when I do send the email side, because when I'm creating the actual link, instead of having that require login option, they actually have a drop down when you're creating a link. Two things I want to actually spot out here is, first off, you'll see the anyone options. These are options here that are actually set so that if you wanted to send this anonymously, that person doesn't have to have a client account. It won't walk them through creating that client. We do have a more particular one that I love to use is the anyone, but it does require them to put in their name and email address. So when we are auditing, we're going through reporting, we can at least see that they put in their email address and their name. So we know that, again, if we're doing an audit, we could see them accessing that file. And again, just like I sent the email, I do have the options to set it to require if I'm sending it either via client or employee. And a client is, again, usually somebody external, right? Employee is considered a licensed user within ShareFile itself. So I just wanted to spot that out because we do usually get a lot of questions around what if that client isn't a part of ShareFile, they've never worked with you in ShareFile, what does that actually look like? So just to, again, understand, you have these as anonymous links versus ones that they require sign in. But again, regardless of that, say for instance, I was saying an email, it will walk them through creating the client if they're requiring login and they don't already have a client.
And John, I just wanted to add, so I know we get a lot of questions, especially when we're talking about what are the best practices here. So I know there's a trade-off between requiring someone to log in versus not log in to view files. The important thing to look at is really what are the risks. So when you're sending an anonymous link, it's essentially open to anyone in the internet. One thing we've seen is that malicious actors such as data scraping, search engines often index public links, making them a target for web scraping tools, as well as data exposure is another risk. When you share a document with that public link, they're, just as the name suggests, accessible to anyone with the link, not just the intended audience. So it's just really important to balance and the train of your staff, which do you recommend is the best practice for the type of information you're sharing with clients?
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Because yeah, that's I say at least as a CSC, I think that's always a difficult, or I would say a decision based on who you're working with, particularly. Of course, all different verticals that we're working with, depending on who your customer is, or even your own employees, it really does depend on how secure you want it to be. So we do give you that flexibility in terms of balancing that out when you will, and we do give that user ability to make that choice. I did want to, before we move on, showcase if you are an administrator of your ShareFile instance, we just recently brought this out where you can actually dictate if you want to actually have your users even be able to see the anyone or anonymous options. So if you're an admin, you might see this setting, admin settings under security, and then login security policy and scroll down, and you'll see the share and request access options. And as you can see here, I can actually toggle these on. So it's going to require the authentication piece when I'm either requesting or sending a file. So if I did have these toggled, when I go back over to doing a share, I will no longer have those anonymous options anymore. So if you're an administrator out there watching, that is something you want to maybe possibly look at. If you want to keep your account even more secure, you don't want that anonymous option, you can toggle that, and so that it requires them to always choose to log in. So at that point, then that person would absolutely need to have a client or an employee account on your ShareFile instance to be able to access that share. Laura, any other examples from there? I think you nailed it on the head in terms of the balance there, but any other examples to add here?
Yes, I would say the last one would be maybe unintentional sharing. Something else to consider is when you do share that public link out, let's say you do email it, that can just get forwarded on and on and on. So you are not able to track who actually has access to that link. Yes, you can set link expiration dates if you're not too concerned about that. But again, when you require that login, it's just more control. If that does get forwarded on, you at least know who's logged in to view it, or you can actually lock down to only have certain people be able to view the logged in link.
Yep. Yep, that's super important because that does happen. And I think that all comes along with also training and the usability of ShareFile throughout your, of course, your corporation, or even, beyond that, obviously, how your clients are interacting with you. So I think that's an important aspect, regardless of what product you actually have. When you're sharing that kind of sensitive data, you kind of have to kind of sit back and kind of think about how you're actually collaborating. So very good point. All right, let's move on over to some of our applications. I'm not going to spend too much time on these points, but I did want to hint to that because I feel when we are in this busy season, you're looking for a couple shortcuts to help integrate to lessen the burden in terms of getting those files collaborated with, and in terms of getting them to ShareFile, and just overall just working with your instance all together. So I did want to highlight one thing, and by the way, all of the apps that I show here today, except the Google app, and I'll let Laura actually show you our Google Mail app here, but all of the apps that we have integration-wise should be at the top here under the app section on your web UI. So if you did want to download and test any of these out, you'll see you have the apps for Windows. We do have it for Mac as well, and of course some of our mobile and third-party integrations. So definitely take a look at those. But I wanted to quickly show what the desktop tool for Windows looks like. The great thing about the desktop tool is that it integrates directly within Windows Explorer. Same thing with the Mac side for its, of course, Files application. But once you install it and log into your instance, you will generate all of your folders just like you would have them localized on your computer. So the great thing here is all my shared folders, all my personal folders, all the favorites I have will actually be listed here. And the great thing is all of this really kind of goes back to the easeability of ShareFile, because we've integrated all of the things you're used to from the website into the application. So say, for instance, if I wanted to share something out, I can simply right-click on it, and you'll see the ShareFile little drop-down. And then, as you can see, we have various amounts, and we go through these in other webinars if we want to learn more about it. But I could actually simply share from here. And as you saw, just like you had on the web UI, you have pretty much the same options here. So I could come in, and we talked about, of course, the security about the share itself. But from here, I could also email. So it's not just creating a link, but this is just one less step that you have to take. Say, for instance, you have too many tabs open on your browser. You want that easeability where I can now just drag and drop an item directly into here. So for instance, I can drag and drop a text filing letter that I have. I wanted to put this into one of my case information folders that I have so I could send this out, but I drag and drop this directly into there. And then now it's uploading over to ShareFile. And as you can see, I got a little green check by the icon to let me know it's up. And it's all synced up to my ShareFile instance. So now I could go kind of anywhere with my laptop or my computer or browser, be able to see that same file in the folder and be able to share that directly out. So at that point, now you're encrypted with that data. Well, I'm sorry, for that data. And then again, I could easily, securely share that file out whenever I need to. Now, also for our Outlook plugin, this is the most handy tool that I use on a daily basis because I use Outlook a lot. But our Outlook plugin is awesome to start, again, sharing right away. Same kind of integration and drag and dropping. If I had, of course, say a document I needed to share out, as you could see, I can have it automate. So once I do log into my ShareFile account with the plugin, it'll automate creating that share for me from my desktop. I can also edit these options in the back here. You'll see all the different options that you could actually toggle here in terms of how it sees attachments. So if you wanted to auto-convert the attachments based on a certain size or just all attachments, you can gauge that from here. And then again, you can actually set it by default based on how you want to share. Again, securing this, say for instance, I want to be sure that everyone signs in before they look at that share. I can have this defaulted, so anything I share from Outlook and sending that out is secure and done. Oh, let me grab that out. The great thing also that we have in here is that we do also have encryption. Just like you saw when I was demonstrating on the web UI, I can actually turn encryption on from here. And as you can see, once I toggled it on, and I could send that off. So when a client actually gets that, and I'll show you a demonstration, is that I sent the encrypted files to, say, my client here. And as you can see, it's a little different, right? It's instead of actually having the link to actually click on to access it, you'll see it says view encrypted message. So when I actually click on that, it will only allow myself as the recipient, and I would have to log in here. We're just against time, but once you actually click on that, it will allow them to see the body of the message that I sent with it, and they'll be able to download or view that document and then also reply back in the same encrypted email. So both back and forth when I'm replying back is encrypted. It encrypts that message of the body. So when I get something back, it'll let me actually know. So we're very big with the notifications, as you could tell. So most of everything when I'm sending a file, regardless of what it is all customizable when we talk about, of course, notifications. As you can see, I added the ShareFile logo here. Provides a little bit of trail in terms of the expiration of the link and so forth. So notifications are big with us. Always be sure when you are sending the emails out to be sure to notify you when, of course, those links are accessed so that you'll be notified, of course, of that person accessing that data. All right, for the last application, Laura, if you're ready, I can pass it over to you to show our Gmail integration because we do have a nice new feature on that.
All right, so here I have logged into Gmail. We also have an application for Gmail, and there's two ways to access it. One, you're here, we have our new ShareFile logo. You can find it once it's installed. I'm already logged into the file here, but it would tell you and direct you what to do. So I'm going to show you how to save an attachment back to your file. When I go here and click on the ShareFile button, I would click this item, proceed to save files. And I'm going to go ahead and select the folder where I would like to save the email. And as I'm saving this here, if there was attachments to here, both the attachments and the body of the email would get saved back to the folder. All right, so this is right now uploading here to let me know this file has been added. So as I go back to the folder, I'll just refresh here. And you can see the file would be here as well as the body of the email. So if I click here, I could go ahead and view the body of that email as well as any of the attachments would just show on this line here. And then one other thing to show you here is what John had showed earlier, that you could also get an encrypted email. So here I've had an exciting opportunity for collaboration, and I could click here to view the encrypted message. So again, I'm already logged in to my ShareFile and my Gmail account, so I could go ahead and just read the body of this email here, and I could just reply directly as well from the email. And again, it works for any kind of email. Here, again, it's just a basic. Is there an option to send up payments? Again, I would just click this item here. I'm already logged in. I proceed to save files to that folder, so it could be archived right back to that folder. All right, John, I will pass it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, that was awesome because I do tend to want to save and archive different email threads, especially ones that are important to me, especially if it's to do with, say, tax season. Of course, talking about my W-2s or information about it, I want to be able to track that and go back in time to see that conversation. It's a great way to be able to easily reference that back. So awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. And also, any other examples that you feel with our applications that would help that balance in terms of security and usability?
Yes, I would say I actually also didn't show the act of actually sending out files. So one question we also often get is how secure is the application itself? So it is the same security as if you were logged into the web app with our encrypted file. You are logged in. I obviously did not show the process of me logging in for this demonstration, but you're logged in with if you have the two-factor authentication set up, or the same way you would log into the web is how you would log into the app here. So all the same security and permission controls carry on to the apps within the web platforms, the email platforms.
Yeah, that's very important too, because especially also with like our Outlook plugin itself, our Outlook plugin allows you to also save those defaults in terms of enforcing it. So we do have under the enable ShareFile tools, sort of like what Laura was actually talking about here. For the Outlook plugin that I showed, you can actually set those defaults and also prevent users from changing that. So again, another aspect of being sure that you're adhering to your company's policies and compliances in terms of being sure when you are sending out through, say, Outlook or Gmail, to be sure that they are set properly. So as an administrator, I can kind of lock that down in terms of some of those options that I showed you. So it's a great way to, again, be secure and be sure, of course, the users are doing, what they are doing in terms of collaborating with your users. All right, so let's jump in a little bit more into security, and let's talk a little bit more about device security. Within device security, we do have, and again, this is more administrative, but if you are an administrator here, under admin settings, security, and configure device security, you do have several different options here to help lock down how you're interacting with a lot of our applications, especially like the mobile applications, right? Because with our mobile applications, you're on the go, you're using your phone, you're accessing your ShareFile account all the time. Obviously, there's sensitive data on there. So we do have things like auto destruct, as you can see here. So we could set different auto destruct sequences based on this, where after, say, 1 day, they would have to log back into their account if you wanted to enforce that. By default, it's always at never. We could always also add, say, for like the mobile application, a passcode for that. So in addition to your actual login credentials, either going through single sign-on or through your ShareFile account directly, you can add a passcode to it. The big also thing is the auto login. This is something that I feel a lot of administrators kind of bypass in this sense. But if I did have the enable automatic login checkmarked as yes, this allows all of our applications to be able to do auto login once they log in for the first time. So again, if you wanted them to continue to log in every time, be, again, that extreme kind of condition, definitely lessens that user experience, but does provide, again, that extra layer of security where they do have to log in. You could always set that to no. And then more importantly, also like on mobile devices, if there was modified devices, say for instance, if the phones were rooted or they had something malicious going on with it, they were modified, we can actually detect that and we can enable that on the back end there. All right, so let's jump from here and let's talk a little bit about what we have that has come out recently. If you've been with ShareFile with us for a little bit, you might have heard the announcements, but we've increased a lot of our security visibility. With that, there were things like threat emails. So like, for instance, if there was a time where somebody was getting a brute force login to their account, you as an administrator will get notified that there were so many failed attempts and they locked out this user, and they'll send you, or will send you, an email to notify you of that. But aside from that, if I did say get that email, the great thing I have the viewability of is if I go into this and say, for instance, John Doe, we were seeing some suspicious activity. We got a couple email alerts to notate that, hey, they were trying to log in, but they keep failing over and over. And maybe John Doe's on PTO. So that's a little suspicious, right? We shouldn't be seeing that. So if I went into John Doe's account here, and this is a client, and I'll show a little bit more also an employee, but under the activity and security alerts, that's a new tab that we have, we're going to see that actual alert pop up over here. So we're going to see that, yep, we had multiple failed sign-in attempts, and he was at a location in Tampa. That might be odd because you know that, say, Mr. John Doe, he usually accesses this ShareFile instance, usually within the corporate network that's in Virginia. So being in Tampa is odd, and he's not on PTO in Tampa. So furthermore, we could then take action. On the right side, you have a couple different things here, and these are pretty straightforward in terms of what they do. We could disable this user. So if we disabled access, that means they can no longer log into their account until we undisable it. And then we also have log this user out. So this will log out of any device that John Doe has. So any mobile device, any applications or the computers they use, it will log them out. And then also we could have it so it resets his two-step factor, his MFA, if you will, and also reset his password. So these are all great measures depending on how you want to take approach. And then furthermore, I want to talk a little bit more about folder access. So the great thing is here is we can look at what was occurring recently with John Doe's account. I can actually come into the folder activity, And I could see within a 24-hour period that he was downloading a file from this folder here and uploading a new one. We feel that's a little suspicious just for the simple fact that, again, he might be on PTO. He shouldn't be doing much on the folder itself. This could very well be normal activity. Maybe we do contact him. He's like, yep, I did have to download that. Perfect. But what if he didn't? He's like, yeah, I didn't upload those. I didn't download those. The awesome thing that we know right away then is we should remove him from the folders that he has access to, either through all the folders he has access to, or you could say just the folders I have access to as an admin. So again, definitely taking more of the step and strides to be sure you're securing your data when you start to see these email threats come in. And as an example, you'll see as we have, say, for today, as an admin, I'm going to actually get the security alert, and this is what it kind of looks like here. And this was my client account. As you could see that we had some odd behavior from a certain account, and it was multiple failed sign-ins. So I, as an admin, will get that. And then if I click that actual button, that will take you directly to the activity section that we see here. So it's an easy one-step process. And then as the client, they'll also get this as an alert from their side. As you can see here, the client themselves, as John Doe, will also get alerted, and they'll have the presence to be able to change their password. So again, we're still adding more and more security measures to this. This is only the beginning, but this is a great stride to be sure that if you're not monitoring this 24/7, you're going to get alerted, and you're going to be sure that you also allow clients to take or employees to take action themselves if something like this happens. So again, administrators know, and the user knows themselves.
John, I just wanted to add one more thing too. So we do have on our docs page, if you're on our docs.sharefile.com and you just search threat detection alerts, we have a grid there of all the alerts that the client would get, the employee, the folder owner, the administrator. So there is a grid there for the different types of alerts, as well as what the difference between what an employee user would have access to versus what the administrator would have access to. But I think the coolest thing I've seen with some of our customers is that the ability for the employee to also have some of those access, especially since they're the ones that own the relationship, especially with a lot of services, businesses that we've seen is that, yes, the admin has control, but for example, the employee would know we're in Miami and this login is from another country. I know they're not on vacation. Let's jump in and help work my IT to work through this. And then lastly, this just came out recently, this past quarter, and it's for our ShareFile Advanced and Premium plans. So if you're not seeing this, you might be on our standard plan. So that would just be something to consider.
Yeah, very good points. And this is actually what you'll actually see as an administrator that has access to this, where they'll be able to actually confirm what they want to do in terms of getting those notifications. So it could be that you don't want to kind of let the clients know or the employees know of the alerts if you want to be just as administrator, but really to kind of be sure that across the board everyone is notified. By default, everything is set here in terms of the actions that they're actually taking here and the notifications they get. So this is very vital in terms of how you want to send those messages out. Again, there are different factors in terms of maybe they didn't want to notify them in certain situations. So you do have that capability. As the account owner in ShareFile, you're the one who should be able to actually see this in terms of what you can actually toggle. So yes, from what Laura said, that's super important. And this has just recently come out. So again, if you're an administrator and you don't know about these things, certainly take a look at those settings that we just went over, because those are pretty important in terms of, again, securing your data. All right, so the last point before we kind of switch paces over to our Q&A that it's live is the one thing we want to last touch on is reporting. Now, again, the threat detections are great. Notifications are great. We have the ability to take action, but perhaps there's something you want to look in the past. You want to be sure that, of course, things are looking right. There could be that a user comes to you and says, hey, I had a file in this folder, but it disappeared. I'm not sure where it went to. You as the administrator, as long as you have the reporting permission under your account, you have the ability to run reporting. And again, to find that, it's under admin settings, company account info, and reporting. And from here, I have various different reports that I can actually run. A couple of the ones that I tend to suggest everyone to kind of keep an eye on is, first off, your usage report. Your usage report allows you to see anything, and maybe actually let me click on that first to show you what kind of activity it looks at. But as you can see, I can actually go based on an entire account, based on a person or a user that's in the account, or particularly a folder that's in there. And you'll see it'll load all the folders, and I can include subfolders as well. I could give it a date range, and we particularly usually recommend having a date range of within 30 days when you're looking for something, just because of the mass amount of obviously activity that could occur and report on. But under here, you have the different types of activities that you can run. Again, if you're maybe worried or you want to monitor, say, login access in terms of how many times a user's logging in, or how many times they upload to a particular folder, you can take and filter out some of these other things in there to lessen the volume, if you will, in terms of those reports. The great thing is, if I didn't want to just run this once, and say, for instance, I had other admins that were interested to see these reports on a daily basis, I can actually set this to reoccur. So if I actually click yes on here, and let's just do it for the whole account here, what I can then do on the reoccurring side is I can actually have this run daily, weekly, or monthly. And then what I can actually do is choose a folder that I can give access to all my other admins to. And then once that runs, you'll get an upload alert when you, of course, sign up for upload notifications on your folder that a new report has been brought out. So having reoccurring reports, especially during busy season, and you're wanting to monitor, say, who's uploading what, who's downloading what, the reports and the reoccurring reports are super vital. Definitely, again, the usage report, I would say, is my number one. Other ones, such as the user report, allows me to see and understand if there's been certain activity on certain employees or clients. Again, this also can be reoccurring as well. But the great thing in here is I can either download this report into an Excel file, or I can simply view, because again, we do have that Office integration, which is awesome. And I can simply bring this up as an Excel. And once it actually loads, I'll be able to see all the activity that occurred in that time span that I was looking for. A lot of cool things that we get to see here is we do log the IP address from the originating session that started with the activity itself, and the location, which is great. And then we can actually see, of course, the timestamps and the items of that activity and what they're actually doing. Again, so this is just really important just to understand that we do have built-in reporting. If you ever have doubt of what happened to a file, if somebody was sharing it, somebody deleted it, moved it, you have all that at your fingertips, and you can stay well within ShareFile instance itself without having to download or anything. And again, to emphasize, those reoccurring reports are super vital, especially around your busy season when, of course, the tax season comes up. You want to actually take a look at certain folders or the entire account and be sure that is regularly brought to you on a daily or monthly or weekly basis, so you don't have to come in here and generate reports, of course, on the fly. Also, we do have our ShareFile page. Delia and crew have been awesome at updating this, and this has gotten so much better from just a year ago, where all of our webinars are all recorded and brought into here. You will get a link, of course, other than just going to the YouTube page here of the recording. But these videos are encompassed of all the different things we've been doing throughout the years in terms of recording. So we do have them in different playlists. So if you're looking for more advanced features versus just how-tos, or if you're just looking for the e-signature functionality and how-tos on the ShareFile side, we have, of course, that. And then we have a complete webinar playlist, which encompasses, again, all over different webinars we've done throughout the year and in the past. So definitely, again, bookmark this. This is a wealth of information. We love to showcase this all the time. Let's also then now jump over to support. How do we get support? We are in the midst of revamping a lot of our help center, adding more information as we go. As you can see, all of our new branding is on here. So we're reconstructing a lot of things, but we've added quite a lot of product documentation. We have a lot of getting started information. We do have the status page here in case you're wondering if we have any issues with ShareFile. We always provide those live to you. But most importantly, if you needed support with your instance, you could always start a chat at the bottom right. And for this, I love to use just because for the simple fact I could start typing in my question here, and this will start automating the process itself here. Down here below, if it's a ShareFile write signature, or we do have Podio, since Podio is part of our product line, but you could start clicking in and it will start automating your prompts all the way through and at least get you to where you need to be. If eventually nothing helps you here, what will happen is a live agent will come on the line and start helping you. And if they can't help you, a case will be created for the back end. So then, again, a support agent will be able to be assigned to that case and be able to research and help you a little better if this doesn't answer what you have here. Lastly, also, we have the blogs page. The blogs page, take a look at this. We have awesome blogs going all the time, not just on the product, but just what we've seen, again, as ourselves as CSCs, SEs, leadership. As you could see, we have tons of different blogs here that talk about different aspects of collaboration in general, about security. So these are just really good reads in general to kind of take a look at. And then finally, our Share Next. That is the awesome webinar that's coming up that I talked about early on in the presentation. This is our first ever just user-wide. Anyone can actually join this. As you can see down here, why do you want to attend? Those insights from our senior leadership, the different deeper dives into ShareFile and kind of going forward into 2024, what that's going to look at. And then again, getting that perspective from different industry professionals, having shared their experience with us. It's a great time to actually jump in here and really kind of get the meat and potatoes, if you will, of ShareFile and get what's kind of coming up. So I highly advise, again, to register for this. As you can see, again, it is free. It is on January 17th, if you can make it. Of course, this is going to be recorded as well if you can't make it. But please, certainly, if you can, register, because I feel this is going to be a good one. All right, so I think we're going to jump into some Q&A. I believe we've had some panelists on the back end kind of starting gathering some of those so that we can actually talk through it. I'm not sure who wants to speak first to talk about it.
I'll jump on in,
Awesome.
John.
Yeah.
All right. So let's focus first a little bit about being secure with collaborating with your client. So I would say maybe starting at the first, as you're going into busy season, have that conversation with your client. Let them know you'll be using ShareFile as a tool. You might get threat alerts, you might get notices from this email address, and maybe have that conversation up front of how you're going to collaborate. So that's something very easy and quick you can do at the start of your busy season. But what we've seen when people maybe you're already in too deep into your projects, trying to access accounts. We've had a couple of questions come through about the actual, my client thinks they have an account, but they don't know. So maybe if you can go through to show where you would find this client and how you can maybe reset their password or set up their account.
Yeah, very good, because I think that does come up a lot, especially again when the client that you're collaborating with, they might have worked with you in the past, but they're just not sure. And, they might not be the most tech savvy, depending, again, on how you're working with them. So you, as the person that is controlling that client, you can always come down to the people section here into browse clients. Again, this depends on your user permission. You might not see this. This is a permission that you are assigned as an employee to be able to manage clients. Most particularly, usually by default, you do have access to creating your own clients, unless, again, your instance is pretty locked down. But for this instance, you can actually see all the clients that you have in here. And by the way, with ShareFile, we don't charge for client usage. So that's the great thing. We only charge for your employee licenses. So you can have really as many clients as you want. But the good thing, though, is to be sure that you're just not adding people just to add people, right? This list could get pretty long. So, definitely it's good, just like Laura said, as you're approaching busy season, whenever that might be, you want to come in here and start to kind of clean up things. It could be that you have a client here, as you could see here, that they never logged in. They might not need to be worked with or brought in at all anymore. Maybe they're not a client anymore. So you can simply check mark and delete that selected user. remember, as a client, there's really no ownership that they really have. So there's no real reassigning of data, right? You're dictating what they're going to see in terms of accessing a folder or giving them permission to certain aspects within ShareFile. So that's the easy part, is you could simply delete that, and I could check multiples if I wanted to and delete them from here. But say, for instance, this person, they never logged in. Maybe it's somebody you're about to actually work with, and you said, they're like, hey, I never use ShareFile. I never got a welcome email about setting up my account. What do I do? So you could easily come down to resend welcome emails down here. And then what you could do is start actually looking up their name. You could start typing it in, or again, you could click on the little person and look at your address book. And when I put that in, you could add a little message to that if you wanted to. And you could send a copy to yourself if you wanted to. But then I could actually send the notify. And then now that invitation got resent out to that person. So if you're talking to them on the phone, or you tell them, hey, it's coming, they should receive that. Of course, have them check their spam folders, any kind of filtering they might have when their mail client. But other than that, they should be able to get that message. And then it's a very easy 1, 2, 3 step in terms of putting in their first and last name, confirming their email address, setting a password, and then they're ready to go. So I think that's, again, very important when we're talking about clients and, extending out to be sure that they are part of your instance. Always kind of take a look in your browse client section, trim out what you don't need so it's easier to find. You can always search for the client if you're not seeing it in the list, so you don't want to scroll around. And again, you could easily manage them by coming into the managed gear icon here. And as you could see here, you have tons of different things that you could do to manage them, and other fields if you need to update their profile yourself. So, but I think that's a really good subject to talk about there, Laura. Thank you for putting that out.
All right, so as we're talking on clients, let's focus a little bit about best practices for staying secure for using folders. So we have we have folders versus file box. We also have personal folders, shared folders. So maybe talk about best practices for which is the most secure, or the best process, and then how can we actually control the permissions on those folders?
Got it. Yeah, that's always good, right? So we talked about sharing, right? I could simply share a file out, or multiple files, even from my desktop, or if it's existing within ShareFile. But we didn't really get to talk about folders, because within ShareFile, you could contain your data within folders and actually share those folders out and those permissions to the client or to the employee that you want to have them do within ShareFile. So let's briefly just kind of go through each one of these. First off, you have a personal folder. And your personal folder is just like your shared folder, but in your personal folder, think of this as more of like a personal space where you're going to upload data. Maybe you need to work on it yourself. You could share from here, and you could add people to the folder itself, as you can see here. But really, generally, the personal folder is more meant to be, again, that personal space where if you're uploading something, you don't want to share it out, you don't want to send it to somebody, it's maybe just for safekeeping. You would want to use the personal folder to upload stuff like that into here. You have share folders, and share folders contains all the folders you have access to, and also folders that you have created and shared out to others. So brunt of your work is going to be in your shared folders, because if you're working with a client and you're sharing a folder with them, it's typically going to be in the shared folder section. So what my advice is, if you are collaborating with somebody, you need to add them to a folder. Always create the folder under the shared folder section. And again, we have that little button at the top there, create folder, and we could create that folder from here. Just to also, or actually, let me finish up on the last part here, is the file box. The file box is a special area where temporary items are actually brought to it for keeping up to 180 days, or based on a retention policy that you have set globally on your instance. We didn't really go through retention, but that is something that is big with us as well. So if you're requiring retention on ShareFile, we do have that. We do talk about it in other webinars. But again, that file box space is, say, for instance, you're using our Outlook plugin, or you're requesting a file from somebody, you can have it so that it goes to the file box automatically. And that file will remain in here for a period of time, again, up to that 180 days by default. And after those 180 days, it will delete. It'll just go to your recycle bin. Or if you want to permanently keep it and put it into a folder, you can tell it to move that file if you wanted to. So let's step back though first about permissions under your shared folders. So let me actually load that, because permissions are big, right? You know, if we're just sharing something, that's a one-off. But if I want to give, say, a customer permanent access or access so they can access that folder whenever they want to, I want to add them to here so they could see everything that I'm uploading and downloading. So from the people section here, it's going to list out all the people that have access to this folder and their different permissions. So say for instance, and let me actually take out John Doe here, and we can kind of start from scratch here. But if I needed to add John Doe, all I need to do is add people, and I could start typing in their name, and that will search for them, and I could put it in. Now, again, if they're not part of your instance already, you do have the ability to create a user or a client user directly from here to add them in. So that's not a problem if they're not existing. And then I have the folder permissions. So these are pretty straightforward in terms of what you're telling that person they could do in here. So of course, the bare minimum is view, meaning they can only view the files, they can open it up, they can preview files, but that's it. They can't download, they can't edit anything within there. If I gave them the download option, that gives them the right to manipulate that data, right? Be able to download items, be able to edit items, things like that. And then also we have the upload, so that gives them now permission to upload new data to the folder. And then lastly, we have the delete option. Again, that simply allows them to delete items within the folder. And then if I actually have them set as an admin, that gives them all permission. And then it allows that person to add new people to this folder. So be very wary. That's my big tip here, is you definitely don't want to just add people as admins, just like nothing, because all the time what you'll obviously realize is that person will start to add people that they're not supposed to. So that is one indication here, is just be sure when you are creating a folder, you're not just adding people as admins, because admins have the ability to be able to add additional people amongst other things. But the big thing there is they have that ability to add additional people.
John, we had a few sub questions in here you might be also getting into here. So
Sure.
so you've added some clients here, and you're going to show that they'll get notified. So are we able to customize the message that gets sent there, and do clients have control over the notifications that they're receiving from this folder?
Right. So, I mean, from here, you do have the ability to actually edit. And if you did add, say, somebody like John Doe here, you can add a nice little message to it. Because as a client, when they do receive this message, they'll see that they've been added to this folder. So I can add a little bit message and say, hey, this is the tax folder for 2024. You need to start uploading all of your W-2s that you've had, or any kind of tax information you can add here as a message. And then what they can simply do is click go to folder. So that will just take them directly to the folder. So this does give you a little unique ability to be able to add a little bit of messaging when you are sending it to somebody or adding somebody new to it, so they know what's coming. And then you could always preview that email to kind of look like what it's going to look like when it gets over to, say, Mr. John Doe over here.
Gotcha. I think today it's just a manual. I don't think we have a way to automate what that message is.
Right. Yes, a little bit more of that customization. That's certainly something we've heard from a bit, but at least when we're talking about at least notifying, and I think that as far as I see it, we do get a lot of inquiries about that is, hey, my client has just added in the share file. He doesn't know what folder they need to be added to. So customizing a little bit of that message, at least to send it to them to notify what they're actually jumping into, is good to have. So just be wary of that in terms of down here, in terms of the editing of the message. But other than that, the last other things are folder alerts to let you know, to see if that person wants to be alerted if there was an uploaded file or a downloaded file. And by the way, unless you're an admin on the folder, you can't actually receive notifications for downloads. So if they need download rights or download notifications, I should say, be sure that they are an admin, and then they can actually check on both those. So again, ShareFile is very big of notifications. If you want to be alerted, you want to be sure you're up to date with what's going on in your instance. These are very prudent to have, depending on the person that you're actually working with. And then lastly is, remember, you do have subfolders. So if I am doing this from the root level, from the top level, you do have the ability to apply these same permissions I'm giving John Doe to all of the subfolders. So be wary of that, because if you didn't want to give them certain permission to subfolders, you want to individually give them certain permission just to say view, be wary of checking the option to apply to subfolders.
I think that covers the folder thing. There was one question just relating to the sharing of files. Someone asked, so yes, once you're in the folder, that person can get access to the folder and collaborate. However, if you're not using folders, you're just using a shared link. How does the link work with permissions, and how does it work if you actually if the employee changed the contents, does it actually change the contents in the URL when they view the file? So maybe if you could talk about the permissions of the link, and then how does it change the view of the URL?
Got it. So when we are doing a share, we went a little bit over this. Well, actually, let me go take this from an actual shared folder here. But what we can actually do permission-wise is when we are sharing that out, we shared this one out, we could create a share, and we want to edit some of these options. You do have the edit options here, and then you can conform that to what you actually need to set. And say, for instance, I'm good with all the options. I want to create and copy. And that created that actual link for me, and then I could send that out. But like Laura said, maybe I got something wrong in the setting. Maybe I wanted to be more secure. Maybe by accident I set it on being anonymous. So if I did actually see that, I can actually come right back into this document as to share out. And you'll see I already have that link created. So it'll remember that I actually created that share. So if I wanted to edit that link, again, I made a mistake, I can always go into the edit options and go and save reverse. Maybe I did want to make it anonymous. I could set that to anonymous and it'll warn you, but I could actually save that. And that will actually save the link now that's already existing. So if you did make that mistake, don't worry. Don't just create more links for you, because obviously we don't want to keep generating links. If there's something that you can actually use now and you have the options already set, or maybe you need to change it, use that existing one you wanted. But it could be that, hey, I needed to create an additional link other than that, or say, for instance, I wanted to replace it. I could always overwrite that link, or I could simply delete it, create additional links as much as I want in different formats. So it could be that I'm sending it to somebody that I want to require login, or I want it to expire at a certain day, like one day. But say maybe I'm sending it to somebody else and I want to have it so that they can access it for over 30 days. I can create, again, a new link, set that to 30 days, create and copy. And then now I have that additional one that you'll see here. So you can easily manage all your different links for those different files from here. And again, if you made it, oops, it's fine. You can always come back, edit those links, or delete them if you will, start from scratch, or make additional links.
So we do have on our blog, I believe it's called Best Practices for Staying Secure During Your Busy Season, which is a summary of a lot of the things we mentioned here. We do recommend sharing that with your teammates. Be a quick and easy way to get a download of what we had here. And as well, again, this webinar will be recorded. So again, if you'd like to share that out with your peers, you're more than welcome to. But just to wrap up, we do appreciate everyone here for your time today, and also appreciate you as being a customer.